really quite a number of things happening in the country, and today, we'll focus on the state of our country. We've got Mr. Segun Showunmi, a member of the PDP, here with us this morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen. Good morning.
Well, we do know that there's this huge talk about restructuring. People approach it in different ways, and who knows, it just may be a major talking point for the elections. But you know, part of the criticisms about the PDP, when they speak about this kind of matters, they always say, yeah, but they had 16 years all the while. Why didn't they ever really approach or attack it headlong? Why did they have to wait until maybe the twilight of, before the former president left office, before they ever thought about maybe doing something people consider as, who knows, if it may have led us to the restructuring?
Well, thank you very much. I don't think you say that PDP didn't talk about it or we didn't do a lot of things around it. It's not a very easy topic for a sitting government to handle. The best that the PDP did was that, if you remember, during the Obasanjo regime, the Constitutional Conference was concave, and during Jonathan regime again, another kind of dialogue was concave. So for the PDP, they've been very consistent in figuring out what exactly the people want and how do they want their country to go. And it's just been that because you have an existing constitutional democracy in place, it's not always very easy to move from the comments around the Constitutional Conference into converging it into legislative agenda that can then legislate and create that robust changes that you want. But essentially what PDP did over the years is to constantly engage the polity on it. And when the agitation and the noise gets really to a point where we can't hold it anymore, we get everybody to come in and say, okay, what exactly are the things that you're talking about in this restructuring? So I think within the body of government, there's enough proposals as to what the Nigerian, or some of the sections of the Nigerian people are saying around restructuring. So I concede that. That's why it's not been easy for us to say, okay, are we reverting back to a new system? Or do they want us to do parliamentary system of government? Is it about creating more state? Is it about the police? All of those fiscal federalism issues that people generally talk about. But one thing that I personally believe is that the existing structure, if we would just be calm about it, can tinker with some of these things and provide via constitutional amendments. The legislation can do its duty. And if you have legislators that are representative of their people sent to parliament in the first instance for such purposes, then that kind of thing will be able to, they should be able to know what their people are saying and how to do it. The main area, the reason why you seem to hear these things so loudly now, as if it's never been discussed before, it's not because PDP is simulating it. No, we're not. It's because there is a marked failure of expectations from a big change agenda from the APC that people have just, not been able to see happen. And because they've not been able to see happen, it's like they're giving up on government, sort of, or they're giving up on the present structure. That's why you see the conversation happening so loud. Unfortunately, when you hear the drivers of the media of the present government, when you hear them engage it, you just laugh. You laugh because most of the proponents of, we want restructuring before they got into power, would be the primary drivers of the APC. That's their school of thought. They like to call themselves progressive, socialist, and all sorts of funny names. But now they're in government. You see them do a volte-face. They are like almost pushing away that topic. So you will just understand that it's nothing more than hypocrisy. But for anybody to say that there's no need for a dialogue in Nigeria, the person can be right. If there was no need for a dialogue, you will not have the extent of activities in the northern region, bordering on Boko Haram. You will not have iPod, bordering on crocodile dance, crocodile smart, python dance, python this. You will not have to put military in the Niger Delta. You won't have to put the army in the southwest. So when you look at the entire country now under the APC, it's as if it's constantly using the military to hold down almost every area of the country. And if you want the military to come and do civilian work, then you would just ask, shouldn't you just give them government if you know you can't even run it? Yeah. It wasn't that bad before.
I'd like to take you back a bit when you talked about in the administration of President Olusegun Obasanjo and that of Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. These things were, there were national conferences that were held. So the question will be, how is it then that your party that was in leadership at that time did not work those materials?
No, we did to some extent. You see, when you concave a national conference as a sovereign authority yourself, the first thing is that you want them to talk among themselves to see what exactly are those fine things that is going to be thrown up. then I believe and imagine that when they finish the report, somebody is going to get that report and is going to read it. The ones that are easy to quickly implement, they will try to figure out a way to implement it. You create a Niger Delta ministry to take care of this and take care of that. But some of them are very, very constitutional, and it requires adjustments of the constitution and all. And in a democracy, there's a procedure for that. That must be either via an executive bill or a private sector bill or the House.
Was there an executive bill, sir?
Well, I think what I would say is that I'm not able to understand precisely why the Obasanjo Constitutional Conference did not implement itself, because maybe they had time for that. But for the Jonathan one, we really did not have that kind of time. But government is a continuum. If you say we are a little to the left, PDP, and we're a little to the right, PDP, and they're a little to the left, you'll expect that these kinds of things should interest them more. For the ideological differences between the parties would also impact the way they will see the nation and the structure of the nation. If you want to...
Are there really ideological differences?
Of course, it's not clear-cut. It's almost like the fine edge of a blade. It's very thin, but something differentiates them. For instance, the PDP as a political party is pro-private sector-led economy, big, stuff like that. You will expect that anybody who's coming with a change agenda, anti-corruption and all of that, you'll expect that they will be a little bit more, welfareist and probably slightly more, whatever they call progressive. So I think the reason why you're having the agitation so loud, it's never been this loud for some time. I mean, the last time you had it this loudly in this country was during the military regime, when they were trying to exit from the military dictatorship into civilian dispensation. It was loud about restructuring and all that. The next time you're hearing it loudly is now. And the reason for that, I'm positing and I'm saying emphatically that the reason why you're having private sector people, you're having civil society and all of those usual players start shouting and screaming is because there's been a failure of hope. Those who came promising heaven and earth have not been able to deliver on it. And the crisis points in the country is much. You didn't have iPod running up and down, doing riot and almost trying to break the country or wanting to secede when we were here. You didn't have the Niger Delta needing
but
Python dance.
Masop, they raised some of those issues, and you had militants who were bombing the oil facilities. So those challenges have always been there.
No questions asked. When you have a multi-ethnic and multilingual environment like here, especially with the kind of warped system you're running, you have to make up your mind. Are you a federating unit or are you not? Are you a federation or are you not? If you're a federation, some more powers must go to the regions and the states, whatever administrative structures you want to use for convenience. But if you say you are a federating unit and you restrain too much of the power in the center, then obviously you are telling yourself a lie. And therefore, these conversations will continue to come up. But it's in the handling of the conversation. It's in the engagement of those who are discussing it. It's in the way the government sees it that determines whether they're able to ride the wave or probably they're going to be driving us through the bump. And it appears as if what the APC government is doing is driving us through the bomb. One day they set up a committee made up of some people, El-Rufai among them, to look at restructuring. 5 minutes later, the spokesperson is saying, what is this restructuring? Making it, trivializing it to an issue that maybe perhaps an opposition party is the one simulating it. No. These issues are always around with us.
But if the opposition party is, of course, they're going to perhaps latch onto it for
there's nothing to latch onto. Nobody needs to latch onto anything in the face of these APC people. By their own, even by their own standards, I'm sure they know they failed. If they haven't failed, have you ever had a time in this country where the First Lady is saying that they're just basically acting the role of opposition within the same government that her husband runs? It's because at the end of the day, human conscience will have to become a skill to measure themselves. And when they measure themselves on a scale, they themselves are not doing well. So nobody needs to latch on to anything. We are part of the dialogue because society is discussing it. And when civil society and, great trade union, regional groups like Afenifere and Mosob and this, when they discuss it, it is the duty of any political party that is around to listen to what they're saying and have some opinion. We are not, as a political party, part of those who want Nigeria balkanized. No way. We also believe that Nigeria should not be balkanized. But we're also part of the people who says that if our people, we're not in government or we're not in parties so that we can do just what we like. We're in party and we're in government so that we can do what our people like. And we can have the conversation with them. And we can engage them in the dialogue. And we must respect their opinions. And I'm sure that if you think about it, except for the fact that there's a blanket loss of faith in the APC government, ordinarily, there's really nothing spectacularly wrong with Nigeria.